what are you made of is a movement because I say that to myself. A lot of times when I'm dealing with tough times, or I say that to myself, man. I literally, in my mind, I talk to myself. Maybe I'm crazy. I can't be the only one that talks to
No.
myself. But I'm like, listen, what are you made of, man? Or a lot of the other things I say is, I'm built for this, man. I got this. Self-talk is so important, good and bad. And so those are the two things, too. When you're talking to yourself, be very conscious of what you're saying to yourself. And so what are you made of is a movement that I started, and just because I said that, and it's about people telling their stories and what they've learned from their stories and how they can inspire other people.
C-Roc, you're an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, coach, mortgage, real estate marketing expert. Thanks for taking time, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to be here, brother.
Let's go back, dude. On your website, you tell this story about when you were 11 years old. This guy pulls out a wad of cash and he throws a crumpled $100 bill at you, and that guy was your dad. What in the world is going through your mind in that moment, man?
Well, first of all, I looked up to my dad. I mean, he was my hero, and he had his own business, masonry business, did pretty well for himself. And he always had that $100 wad of bills in his pocket. And I looked up to him for that, man. It was not about the cash or the greed of money or something like that, but it was what it got us, man. Trips, going out to dinner to eat, the nice house, all that stuff. And just to give you a little bit of background on that, I my parents have been split up since I can remember. I don't remember them together. And I was kind of sold on coming to my dad's house at 8 years old and moving away from my mom, breaking her heart. Lived there for 3 years, mental, psychological abuse. And I had decided to move back with my mom, and he found that out through court papers. And he decided to take that money out, $100 bill, crumpled up and throw it at me and say, here, you're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mom one day. Wow. And I was crushed, man. I was crushed at that moment. But I also vowed at that moment as well. I thought to myself, and I remember this as clear as day, I can't be the only person this has happened to. Right. It's somebody else had this happen to them. Their dad gave up on them. Somebody gave up on them. And I vowed at that moment, I didn't know how, but I was going to do something to help other people, and I was going to prove him wrong. I was committed to that. And I'm stubborn to a fault, and it might not be the best way to go about things, but that's the way I operate, and I use that to overcome hurdles, obstacles that I run into, plus to get on, once things are going well, to take things to the next level.
Yeah.
And, you got two choices. You can play the victim role and feel sorry for yourself, or you can take the bull by the horns and say, hey, man, I made it through that. It didn't happen to me, and I made it through it. And that's a win. And what can I use to build on that from that for the future? So
absolutely. You mentioned on your website that you could show 3 ways to pivot from things that are holding people back and to really a whole new mindset. One, how do you do that? And what are those 3 things, man?
Well, first of all, you got to realize, and I want everyone to realize this, everything you go through, good or bad, no matter what, is a training session for your future. Yeah. Now, I know you're in the MMA and you have an MMA awesome podcast, the #1 over there. By the way, I've listened to some of them. Awesome.
Appreciate that.
But the thing is that everything's a training session, just like fighting, just like practicing sports, everything that you go through. So if you take that mindset, and when something comes your way that you run into, that's a tough spot, somebody doesn't treat you right, you have a setback. If you understand that that is a training session, you approach it in a whole different manner, and then you can use that for your future. So that's #1. And as far as like you talking about the bounce back kind of thing and using things that happened in the past, well, one thing I always revert back to is I have this movement called What Are You Made Of? And this movement is taking hold. It's getting a snowball effect, and I'm going to push this out through the world. I'm trying to reach 10 million people with it. Wow. And the reason, by the way, the reason I'm trying for 10 million is because if I try for 10 million, I know 1 million will hear it, because not everybody's going to not just hear it, but take it in. Mm-hmm. So What Are You Made Of is a movement because I say that to myself. A lot of times when I'm dealing with tough times, or I say that to myself, man. I literally, in my mind, I talk to myself. Maybe I'm crazy. I can't be the only one that talks to myself. But I'm like, listen, what are you made of, man? Or a lot of the other things I say is, I'm built for this, man. I got this. Self-talk is so important, good and bad. And so those are the two things, too. When you're talking to yourself, be very conscious of what you're saying to yourself. And so What Are You Made Of is a movement that I started, and just because I said that, and it's about people telling their stories and what they've learned from their stories and how they can inspire other people.
Wow. Yeah, you have the podcast. You've got a book coming out. What Are You Made Of? Coming out soon. When can us fans expect to see that book?
This is my first book. So what I'm doing right now is I'm writing it as I go. Yeah. And I'm actually writing it in my phone, believe it or not. It's crazy.
Wow.
I don't know how most people probably write it on Word docs and all that. I have a app in my phone, and I just type away thoughts that come to me throughout the day. Wow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to structure that. And I'm waiting on a couple events to happen, so I don't have exact timetable yet. And it's my first book, so it's going to be within a year or two. Okay. Honestly, I have a podcast, What Are You Made Of podcast. I'll be talking about that. If they want to join that or subscribe to it, I'll be talking about the book a lot and letting everybody know when it's coming out.
That's awesome. Now, you've been in the mortgage and real estate industry for 15 plus years. You and some buddies started this thing over on your end. How did you get into real estate? What made you decide to go that route?
So I was in-home sales for 9 years, selling water treatment systems, man, for God knows $5,000 to $7,000, and we had to close them that night or they wouldn't buy. So we'd be in a house for 2 to 3 hours, and I just learned my sales skills and grinding then, and I didn't realize it. Again, it's a training session. I didn't realize it at the time. I wasn't making the greatest amount of money. I hated it. I was driving all over the place. Wow. But what I didn't realize at that time was what lessons I was learning every single time I had a demonstration with people, and then I was going through rebuttals and closes, and I didn't realize the training that I was going through. And I think that I could have learned a lot more probably, even though I learned a lot, if I had known and looked at it as a training session. So then I decided, you know what? I see a lot of people making money in real estate. Let me get my license. I became a top producer in the first year of being a real estate agent, and I used to send my business to my partner now, Chris Short. He was in the mortgage business. And I would send him clients all the time. We'd work together. At some point, I just said, you know what? I don't like showing people houses. It's a pain in the butt. I don't like driving around to those. Mortgages is where it is. So I asked Chris, I said, hey, man, get me in the business. I'll do whatever it takes. And he didn't want to. He was kind of leery because I was sending him business in the first place.
Sure.
Secondly, it was a 100% commission job. I'd have to drive an hour and a half each way to the office for where he worked. But at the end of the day, we look back on that now, and that was in 2006. So 13 years ago, right? 13 years ago, we started with me just popping on as a loan officer to developing 7 branches with 30 employees that we oversee in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeastern Florida. And we are setting records, by the way. This is I hate to brag, but there's some things behind what I do and what I share with people that are working in our own business. And that's how I know it works. I'm speaking from experience. We've had 6 record-breaking months this year.
Wow.
Records don't break that often unless you're doing something right.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. That's awesome. I love that, dude. I have a lot of friends who do real estate, and they do really well. And man, I love that you're just out there breaking records down there, man. So thank you.
Thanks.
But wanted to shift to a couple fun questions, man. I've noticed you post some pictures of baseball. What's a favorite baseball team for you?
I'm a Philly everything. I just grew up outside of Philly, so I love Philly everything. But I always root for the Yankees as well, just because of the history, and it's an American League team, so it doesn't interfere too much with the Phillies.
Nice. Absolutely.
So I think I posted a picture. I went to the Yankees playoff game against the Astros, and went with my little brother. He works with us, by the way, and 3 of my best friends work together. But we went up there. It was a great experience, and I love sports in general, man.
That's awesome. I love music, man. I'm a music guy. What's the favorite type of music that you like to listen to, or do you have a favorite band that you like to listen to?
Well, what really gets me fired up is hip hop. It's just the way it is. I don't know why, but I mean, I listen to all kinds of music. Yeah. What really gets me fired up and pumped up is hip-hop music. And I even obviously the old school stuff, Biggie and all that. But new stuff coming out, some of the new stuff is actually catching me, which I didn't think that would be the case.
Sure.
And but I mean, I like rock too. But, you know, I think some of that stuff it doesn't fire me up in a good way. So.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Last question for you. You had mentioned that you like to read a book a month. What books are you reading right now, man?
Okay. So first of all, let me tell you about the books. People do not read books, man. It's amazing. The average person doesn't read a book a year. And I think it's because a book looks like this. It's thick and it's overwhelming. So what I have a little trick I do. And I want to share this with your readers or your listeners, because you can read 2 books a month doing this. And it's simple. If you read 10 pages in the morning, 10 pages before you go to bed, takes 5 to 10 minutes each time. That's 2 books a month, because that gets 600 pages roughly. That's 24 books a year. If you do that, it's like knocking out an elephant, trying to eat an elephant, right? They say 1 bite at a time. It breaks it down a little bit for you, and you can consume so much more because you're reading little bits at a time. So a little tip there. But books right now I'm into is The Trillionaire Coach, It's about a football coach that actually turned into a business coach and coached the founders and owners of Google, Apple, Intel. That book's great. And another one I just got into, I read all of Grant Cardone's books. I reread those over and over again.
Right.
That's something to do. And another one that I was reading right now that was good, I just got. It's called American Hero. It's by Magna Khalifa. She's a fellow 10Xer with me. She went to a speaking class with me, and she's a veteran, a U.S. veteran, and she wrote a book, and she just released it recently, and it's pretty awesome. So I had that up on my Facebook page, by the way.
Awesome. Man, those are great tips, because I've tried to read a book a month and I've definitely struggled and I get overwhelmed and I'm like, man, that book is really long, and I've tried the whole 10 pages in the morning thing, and that has worked when I've stayed consistent. So those are awesome tips. So thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate that.
And look, dude, if somebody misses a day, it's not the end of the world. Just get back on it tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that?
Absolutely, man. Hey, I also wanted to give you an opportunity just to give a shout out to your teammates, your guys that you're working with, your business, whatever. The time is all yours, man.
Thank you, man. Nations Lending is a home loan company that's all over the country. We take pride in making home loans human. There's a lot of people doing the digital thing, and we have all that technology, and we can do it quick, but we keep the human element in it because it's definitely required nowadays still to this day.
Yep.
And, I have this What Are You Made Of movement going. I have a podcast, What Are You Made Of? It's on iTunes, Spotify, all the major platforms. Please check me out. Appreciate your support. Look forward to your engagement. And one more thing, I have a private Facebook group called What Are You Made Of with Mike C-Roc, which is for the listeners, for all of us to get engaged and share stories that inspire others.
Man, I love it, dude. It's an honor to talk to you, C-Roc, man, and what you're doing out there in real estate, man, and your podcast. You're killing it, dude. So thank you for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, E. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much for checking out the show today. I wanted to just take one quick second of your time to point you to erikallenmedia.com. I have a ton of free and paid content on our resources tab. Click on that. Tons of books, tons of websites you can go check out. Some secret websites in there as well for you. But listen, I am available for hire for anything from product videos to content videos, review videos. I do a lot of how-to and explainer type videos, box opening videos for brands. I also do laser engraving for anything that's wood product. So if you need some, coasters made or fun tags or something like that, shoot me a DM. Happy to help you out. You can check out some of my work on our YouTube channel there. Really appreciate you checking out the show today. Thank you so much for your time. Have an amazing day.